So we were just telling you about that ABC story that they broke where they have two whistleblowers saying that, yes, we did in fact listen to Americans' private conversations, including their phone sex conversations.
Brian Ross. I just wanted to see who the reporter was.
Right. And in fact, we have it for you here. Brian Ross reporting on the story. The first person you're going to see is one of the whistleblowers himself. Here we go.
Personal phone calls of
American officers,
mostly in the green zone, calling home to the United States, talking to their spouses and sometimes their girlfriends, sometimes on the same days, sometimes one call following another. And coworkers of mine were ordered to transcribe these calls.
David Murphy Falk was a Navy Arab linguist assigned to the NSA facility at Fort Gordon until a year ago.
And when one of my coworkers went to a supervisor and said, "But sir, these are personal calls," the supervisor said my orders were to transcribe everything.
We were listening to Iraq.
Those were the same orders Arab linguist Adrienne Kinney says she got from her Army commanders at the same NSA facility from 2001 to 2003. Kinney says she listened to hundreds of Americans simply calling their families.
Americans in the Middle East calling home.
Oh, most definitely. Like personal, private things with Americans who are not in any way, shape, or form associated with anything to do with terrorism. It was just personal conversations that really nobody else should have been listening to.
And you were.
And we were.
But the law is very specific, and President Bush has reassured Americans again and again.
It's a phone call of a known Al-Qaeda suspect making a phone call into the United States.
I would say that is completely a lie. I would call it a lie because we were definitely listening to Americans who had nothing to do with terrorism.
Kinney says she intercepted, recorded, and transcribed conversations with the military, journalists, and Red Cross and aid workers.
Did you just pull the plug and say we shouldn't be listening to this?
I wish that I had, but I didn't.
And former Intercept operator Folk says some highly private calls were passed around like office jokes.
And at times when I was told, "Hey, check this out. There's some good phone sex, or there's some pillow talk. Pull up this call. It's really funny. You'd go check it out."
And you would listen.
It was there, stored the way you look at songs on your iPod.
That number would get passed around. You listen to this call, you'll hear some phone sex, you'll hear some pillow talk.
Right.
And you did.
Yes, I did.
How do you feel about that?
I feel that it was something that people should not have been doing, including me.
Yeah, I have to say the least.
Although I got to be honest, there's a little priceless moment with Brian Ross. It's like, so you heard some phone sex, some pillow talk,
some pillow talk,
and you just and then naturally you start thinking about Brian Ross having phone sex.
Oh, please stop. Well, you know what,
honey? What are you wearing? Some sort of blouse?
Or is it lingerie?
Is it lingerie? Is your head on the pillow?
Because we're about to do pillow talk. The thing is, they probably have listened to Brian Ross, because they didn't just listen to...
Yeah, journalists, that's the worst part. That's the scariest part to me.
It wasn't just U.S. military. It wasn't just human rights organizations, International Red Cross. It was also journalists and government officials. Now, you think that the higher-ups that authorized that, in fact, told that worker, hey, get back to work, don't question it, just listen. You think they didn't take some of the media calls and some of the government official calls and use that for political purposes? Well, if you think that at this point, then you're an absolute and positive sucker. You're the biggest sucker in the whole wide world. In fact, the whole country and the whole Congress is a bunch of suckers for ever believing George Bush in the first place. Now, of course, there were some of us who didn't. As soon as he came out and said, we're only listening to Al-Qaeda. Well, if you were only listening to Al-Qaeda, you could get the world's easiest warrant to do that. Imagine you go to a FISA judge, I'd like to listen to Al-Qaeda. Says no.
No.
Okay. Of course you can listen to Al-Qaeda.
We've approved 99.8% of all your warrants, but I'm not persuaded on this one.
Yeah, Bin Laden? I don't know.
Al-Qaeda? Well, I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
Come back in a few weeks when you got more information.
The whole point of this illegal wiretapping program was so that they could listen to American calls, okay? Was to listen so they could listen to innocent people's calls. Because if they wanted to listen to suspects' calls, they can get a warrant as easy as anything you've ever seen in your entire life.
And
that FISA court gave warrants 99.8% of the time. They almost never rejected a warrant.
And they could do it retroactively. And if you'd gone to the Democrats and said, if they'd had any sort of spine at all, and said, hey, there's 3 days where we can do it retroactively, we need more. We need 2 weeks retroactive. You know what they would have said? Fine.
Well,
Done.
they said fine on FISA
abuse
anyway.
All I'm doing is making the point that if that was their concern, that could have been handled easily, an easy expansion of it, which would have made civil liberties people uncomfortable, but not apoplectic in the sense that they would have just simply bypassed any sort of judicial review.
See, this is the kind of story that makes me despair of the whole system. Because I get that there are evil guys like Cheney that come in here and want to abuse their power, and Nixon. It happens in a democracy. It's natural. In fact, we have a system built to be able to withstand such attacks against a free country in our free form of government, right? So I expect the Cheneys and the Nixons of the world and the George W. Bushes. It's the rest of them that I'm so disturbed by. I mean, the Republican Party, they've given up all pretense. They're 100% authoritarians. They're not conservatives. Real conservatives should be shocked by this. And some real conservatives, like Ron Paul and Bob Barr and Pat Buchanan, are shocked by it. Okay? So, then you go to the Democrats. What a bunch of weaklings. How pathetic. They just rolled over on all of this. Not all. There were some great fighters like Senator Feingold who fought him tooth and nail all the way. But most of the Democrats bowed their heads and said, yeah, go ahead, look at innocent Americans. Things, you want to record military guys having phone sex, go ahead, do it all. And the media, they went along with the lies. Oh, no, they're only listening to Al-Qaeda people. All right, well, at least you got to give ABC News credit here for breaking this story.